Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Cowboy C3 coming at you live. We in a different location today. We in the dungeon. Um, this is where we'll be doing most of the lives, like post game stuff. So it's a good opportunity for me to, practice working in here, vice working in an actual studio and getting this stuff. After some technical difficulties, I'm not gonna tell you I was operator error because it was. Um, Finally got this situated here, and I think we should be okay. We'll see how this one works out. If not, we might have to do some more tweaking, but we'll get it right. Um, this week was a pretty good week of practice. It was. It did have. It did have your first. Well, actually, your second major camp casualty. First one was Sam Williams, Deron Bland, stress fracture in his foot. Expected to be out 6 to 8 weeks. Um, Pro Bowl cornerback, set the record last year with pick sixes. I think he returned 7 back for pick sixes. That's a major blow to the defense. Kalen Carson, rookie, is going to get an opportunity to step up. Trayvon Diggs will be back, so that gives you one side, that what's going to happen over there. Barring that, hoping that he's healthy coming back from this ACL injury. Had another defensive tackle signing in Linval Joseph. That's 2 in the last 2 weeks. That tells me that they're not sold on Mozzie Smith yet, and for a reason. Mozzie had a bad season last year. There's no question about that. I mean, I think we all know that. But what he showed was this year. What he's showing is that he can play in spurts. He is not a stay in the game stallmate at defensive tackle. Mozzie is good for about 5 or 6 plays, and then he's got to come out. He's winded. He's tired. He can't do anymore. And I don't know. I think I said it on the previous podcast. It may be a conditioning thing, but Mozzie may be one of those people where the easiest way to get into some sort of condition that you need to be in order to play for a sustained period of time is you have to run. And he may be one of those people that as soon as he starts running, he loses weight really fast. And he can't afford to lose weight. Not at the position he's playing. He's still coming in at like 310, 315 this year. He needs to stay at that weight. So in order for him to stay at that weight and play, they brought in 2 defensive tackles, 2 veteran defensive tackles that he'll be able to spill, and they'll have like a defensive tackle rotation. And I think that that'll be good. I can tell that Mike Zimmer is all in on stopping the run. That is one thing that he is going to do. He's like, you're not going to run on us like that this year. And you can tell that just by the signings that they're having. Peyton Hendershot came off injury. He started practicing a little bit last week. He started practicing, pretty much full time this week. And he has really turned heads. Peyton Hendershot was always a decent tight end. He had a knack for making splash plays, right? Well, that's what he's been doing in practice this week. So it makes that tight end room a little bit more, makes it a little bit more competition in the tight end room. Jake Ferguson is your tight end 1, and I think he's underrated. And, you look at a lot of lists and stuff on tight ends in the NFL, and they got him ranked anywhere from 8th to like 15th in the NFL. And that's crazy. I know Cowboy fans, we appreciate him. You kind of went through a long period of time, with Jason Witten and it went to the Texans, like Dalton Schultz. Finesse tight ends, get you a bunch of catches, not necessarily that interested in blocking so per se, but will kind of get in the way. Dalton Schultz, more so Jason Witten than Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz would just kind of, he would kind of stand in the way and then get, just move out of the way. Jake Ferguson has shown that he is willing to get in and get dirty. Luke Schoonmaker is going to be your tight end 2. He's a 2nd-round draft pick. in Michigan, he led holds for Blake Corum like for 3 years in a row, 2-3 years in a row, right? It hasn't really panned out in the NFL the way that it did in Michigan. And it could just be the scheme that the Cowboys are running, right? Their running scheme. But he is going to get the opportunity. He's probably an average, maybe a little above average athlete. Ferguson is athletic. Peyton Hendershot is an athletic guy. He is. He's an athletic guy. He brings flash. He brings some splash plays to you, but he is not a fantastic blocker, and he's been hurt all camp. So you really haven't gotten an opportunity to see him, right? But he came out this week and had a great week of practice. Your wide receivers this week are going to have, there was some saying. Jerry came out. He said 3 things in his press conference. The thing that made it kind of awkward, right, is that he said that Trey Lance already has a spot on the 53-man roster. What I interpreted that to be is that the Cowboys are going to keep 3 quarterbacks because Trey Lance is still listed as a number 3 quarterback, which means you're going to have to cut from other positions. He also said that they're thinking about keeping 6 wide receivers. So if you got 3 quarterbacks and 6 wide receivers, one of these rooms is going to have to get cut down, either your running back room or your tight end room. And the way that I kind of think about it, right, is that your tight end room would be the easiest one to cut down. 2 tight ends. You have Hunter Lemke as your fullback. He's going to be there. Mike McCarthy loves running the fullback in his run game. If you need a 3rd tight end, Hunter Lemke can be that 3rd tight end. He can be the H-back. He can line up, in the slot and come in motion and lead block that way. So if you're going to run a single back and him lead blocking from the tight end position, that can work. So there's ways to kind of finagle it, right, and make it happen. Your linebacker room definitely is going to have to get shaven down. I think they're running with 7 or 8 linebackers right now, and all of them have played pretty well. Kendricks, Overshown, Micah Parsons, depending on how you want to label him as a defensive end or a linebacker, right? Lufau, those guys are going to be there. Everybody else, it's a battle. Like you're going to have to make some plays in order to get on this roster. It's a pretty good problem to have, to be honest with you. You kind of thin at cornerback. As of today, Stephon Gilmore has not been signed. He played a solid corner for you last year. Maybe time to think about bringing him back in. He knew Dan Quinn's defense, but Stephon Gilmore is a veteran. He'll come in, catch on to the defense real fast, and he can hold the fort down for you for 6 or 8 weeks. You know what I mean? And wait for Deron Bland to get healthy and come back to the roster. You will see a lot of Trey Lance tonight in the preseason game. You'll see him, and that game starts here in about 30 minutes. You'll see him a lot. He has a lot of things that he needs to show tonight in order to be not even the quarterback too, but to be on the roster. If I'm not mistaken, now you can carry 3 quarterbacks on game day. He can suit out just in case your starter gets hurt, and then you have a backup behind the number 2 quarterback. I believe that was a rule that started last year. That's something that I can see him being that extra person on the sideline, right? The emergency quarterback. Other than that, I don't see him beating out Cooper Rush as the number 2 quarterback. They're not going to cut him, right? He'll get, practice squad reps and things like that. But on Sundays, he'll be suited out. He will be on the sideline, but he will be there in an emergency situation. You're going to see a lot tonight from the secondary, them trying to rotate corners in to see who's going to take Deron Bland's spot for this next 6 to 8 weeks if they don't decide to bring a veteran in. You got a lot of rookies, and your strongest performer so far in this preseason, Jordan Lewis, has played a solid slot corner, right? But I don't know if you scoot him outside, who you going to put in the slot? because you really haven't been practicing with anybody significant practice time other than Jordan Lewis. So I think the easiest one is to slide Kalen Carson outside and have him attempt to hold down that corner the best that he possibly can. He needs to have a good game today, or I think that they will go and look for veteran help. I think Mozzie Smith needs to play well today. I think Mozzie Smith needs to play well today just to get himself in the defensive line rotation. I do. He hasn't played that great. He's played well, like I said, in short spurts. That's how he's played. And that's still significantly better than last year. Last year was not good for him at all. It was not a good season. It was a lot of times that he was so slow off the ball that the offensive guard or the center, whoever he was lined up on, was already out of their stance and almost with their hands on him, and he was still down in a 3-point stance. And he ended up on his back a lot. He's way too big to be on his back. I think you will see a heavy dose of Deuce Vaughn. Deuce Vaughn showed you that he can be electric, right? I've said it, I think, in every podcast that I've had since I started this Cowboy Spit thing, right? That Deuce Vaughn, not his downfall, but his only real negative is his size. He is a small cat. He's 5'5", maybe 175, 180 pounds. But he was an All-American in college. He ran between the tackles. He did everything. Cooper Beebe, another guy that got starting reps pretty much all week. He kind of just overtook Brock Hoffman's job. That was his pulling guard in college. He ran behind Cooper Beebe. He is going to get an opportunity tonight to tote the rock and prove that he belongs on this roster. And I think that they have a spot for him. It's going to be an uphill battle, though, because Royce Freeman is running the ball exceptionally well. Deuce Vaughn, I think, is running the ball better than Malik Davis. I think he is. And also he's running the ball better than Snoop Connor. But like I said, if you're going to have, for some reason, you're going to construct your roster with 3 quarterbacks on your roster, somewhere has to get trimmed. Running backs or tight ends. I believe the Cowboys are going to keep 6 receivers. There'll be a battle tonight between Jalen Cropper and Ryan Flowney. We'll see how that goes. Ryan Flowney has come off this injury in training camp and has really showed why he was special as a college player. It was D2 ball, right? But he's come to practice after his injury. He's gone out there against a solid secondary and he has performed. That's the only thing you can ask him to do. He came in the game last week. He performed. Jalen Cropper did not perform. He muffed a punt, dropped a pass on the sideline, and was not ineffective, but he had a couple catches, but it wasn't anything spectacular. Flourney caught a touchdown. He caught some passes, broke some tackles. He looked exceptionally well. He looked better than Jalen Cropper. I think that Brevin Spanford, which would be right now your tight end number 4, right? I think he'll have to clear waivers and be on the practice squad, but you'll see him get an opportunity to perform tonight. Kamon Hall had the pick 6 last week. He's going to get an opportunity to play, right? Your safety room is kind of thick, right? It is. Donovan Wilson will be your starting safety. Israel Mukuamu, you've got guys like Eric Scott Jr. that can run safety and corner. Eric Scott Jr., I remember his 40 time was kind of slow coming out of college. I think he ran a 4.6. That's kind of slow for a corner. So you move him to safety. Mukuamu can play corner and safety as well. So these guys are kind of interchangeable. You've got to figure out who your safeties are going to be. I do believe that Marquise Bell will eventually take the safety job from Wilson. I do. Marquise Bell, Damian Wilson was kind of a liability last year in coverage. You saw him get beat a few times. Um, it's still kind of in the air whether Marquise Bell can cover or not, but he covered from the linebacker position last year. He did a pretty good job covering running backs out of the backfield. Um, safeties will line up, kind of pick up a running back, or most of the time pick up a tight end. And I think Marquise Bell can do that. And one thing that Marquise Bell can do, and we all know that he can do this, is that dude can tackle. He can tackle. And from a safety position, he doesn't have to get mixed up with 300-pound linemen too often, right? And like he did when he was playing linebacker last year, he doesn't have to do that anymore. Wilson's going to come up and hit you. He kind of sets the tone for that defense. But his liability, like I said, is pass coverage. I do believe that Marquise Bell is better in pass coverage than Donovan Wilson. And that's the reason why you will see them start to rotate and you'll see them start to leave Marquise Bell on the field more than they will Damian Wilson. Not to say that Wilson is not a good safety. It's just that I believe Marquise Bell may be slightly better. Chargers tonight. Game starts at 4:00. I was interested in going to the game, right? But I don't think I'm going to make that trip. I'm going to sit here and watch the game. I will be back on here live. One thing that I want to talk about starting next week, and now that I got these technical difficulties taken care of, I can come on here live whenever I get ready. So I'll be posting live probably daily, especially leading up into the season. Is you got a 90-man roster right now at this last preseason game. That roster has to be cut down to 53 players by Wednesday. We will see what they're going to do. You still don't have CD Lamb signed. That is a major, major thing that the Cowboys need to get done. I believe they practice in Oxnard, I believe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, came back here for the preseason game. They are in Dallas. Everybody's at home. You're going into your own office. You can sit down in your own chair. You can pick up your own phone from your own office, and you can make phone calls. You can get CD Lamb up there to the start, and you can sit him and his agent down. You guys can sit face to face, have these conversations, and get this deal done. That should be priority number one, especially going into next week. You get a week off right before the season starts. So let's get it done, right? Let's get it done. And it's time. It's time. Next week, I'm going to explain to you how these 3 contracts that the Cowboys have that are due now, it's definitely a lot of money, and it's going to put a heavy strain on your salary cap. But it can be done. I'll give you a brief overview right now of how it can be done and how I'm hoping that the Cowboys kind of tackle the situation. Right now, they have about $28 million in cap space. Once the roster gets cut down, that'll grow. And then you have the money that you would need to sign CD Lamb. Next year, right now, I think they're sitting at like 26th in cap space. Next year, they start off at like 9th in cap space. The year after that, they're number 1 in cap space. They will have plenty of money to kind of disseminate between players. Micah Parsons' contract is due, I believe, in 2 years. CD Lamb and Dak Prescott's contracts both expire after this season. I will explain how you can get all 3 contracts done next year, right? And keep your foundation of your team intact, vice trying to start over with a new quarterback or find a new CD Lamb or find you a new defensive end / linebacker Swiss Army knife that can do a whole bunch of different things. That runs a 4.3 40. This can be done. I'm hoping that that's what they're trying to balance out is the future, right? And that's why we have this extended contract negotiation going on with CeeDee Lamb. I'm hoping that's the reason. But it has been said that, you know, money's kind of tight around here, whatever. That organization is worth $11 billion. Money ain't tight nowhere. You have the money. You just have to be willing to spend it. Especially if you are going to keep running your organization the way that you're running it. Like he's telling you who's going to be on the roster and who's not going to be on the roster now. And I'm talking about Jerry. Last time I checked that was the coach's decisions and the general manager's. Well, he is the general manager, so never mind. Yeah, that is his decision. Kind of a weird phenomenon that the Cowboys have had going on for the last 30-something years, and the last 30 years of it hasn't worked. That's for a reason. Well, another thing that we'll talk about next week is we will talk about after the Eagles made the trade this week for wide receiver in Washington, slot receiver. I'll think of his name in a minute. They made the trade. It kind of showed you that the Eagles are all in to win. They are. And I'm going to look up his name right now. Jahan Dotson. I don't even know why I had to look. I didn't even have to look it up. Solid. He was a number 2 receiver in Washington. 50, 60 catches a year, 700-800 yards, couple touchdowns. That's all that Philly really needs. You got an excellent wide receiving core. You got A.J. Brown, of course, and then you got Smith on the other side, who's a solid number 2 receiver, kind of a smaller in stature guy, but that dude knows how to get open, and he knows how to make himself available for his quarterback. The only thing that roster was really missing was a slot receiver. You got a good running back. You got Saquon Barkley. Your quarterback is you have a decent quarterback. He's good for what he does. He runs that offense well. They were just kind of lacking in there. You know, you got your 2 good / great wide receivers, right? But then you are missing a slot wide receiver. That was the only thing that you were really missing, and you went and got it, right? And everybody knows Philly has salary cap issues just like Dallas, but they seem to put together a roster every single year that is competitive and that can take them to the Super Bowl. With that being said, I got a request from one of the subscribers to break down the division next week and then break down the schedule for the Cowboys. Put the roster together with the people that are on that are after the 53-man cut and are on the 53-man roster. Break down the division, look at the schedule, and see how we're going to do, or what I think we can do. I can make an argument for 11-6. I don't know about 12-5, but I can make an argument for 11-6. I can also make a solid argument for 8-9, and I can also see a 4 or 5 win season, especially if the injury bug hits. It's starting. It hit you twice hard. It hit you with Sam Williams, and it hit you with Deron Bland. Your offense has been relatively healthy because they haven't really played a lot of starters. The only starter that has really played or has kind of earned himself into the starting role, 2 guys, Cooper Beebe and Tyler Guyton. Those guys have played. Everybody else has not. Brandon Cooks came back for practice this week as well. He didn't really do a lot. He was out there catching passes, though, just trying to keep that knee healthy because right now he is wide receiver number 1. That is your wide receiver. Until CeeDee Lamb gets signed and gets here in camp, well, not camp, gets into practice, he is your wide receiver number 1. Need to get this roster solidified. You got Guy holding out, you need to get him there. That way it kind of balances out your offense. I don't think that the Cowboys are done with their running back situation either. I don't. I think that they will bring in another running back, and it'll be, either somebody that's gotten cut that they feel like it can help the roster, or it'll be via trade. Who they'll trade, I don't know. That could be your quarterback discussion for tonight, right? It could be, do you trade Cooper Rush for a running back? Do you possibly trade Trey Lance for a running back? We'll see. I think with Trey Lance, if you can get anything, if you can equal out to what you trade for, I mean, you traded for the number 3 overall pick in the draft. You got him for a 4th round pick. If you can get anything 4th round pick or equivalent to that, right, which means a starting running, well, not a starting running back, but maybe a starting running back on another team, or a backup running back that you feel like can help this roster, Dameon Pierce in Houston per se. That may be a viable option that you can get. This next week is just going to be kind of tricky, but I think that they will make a move to get another running back in here. I believe they will, because right now your running back room looks kind of thin, not necessarily in stature per se, but I mean in talent. Rico Dowdle is a talented running back, but he can't seem to stay healthy. Zeke is Zeke. He's not. He's a shell of the Zeke that he used to be. Royce Freeman is kind of a journeyman. He's been on a lot of teams, and 6 years in the NFL, 7 years in the NFL. He's been on a lot of teams. Deuce Vaughn is little. Snoop Connor is not performing. Malik Davis is not performing. Not performing in games. Mike McCarthy said that he was very happy with Malik Davis in practice in Oxnard. I think that was the week right before the week 2 preseason game. It just hasn't showed up during games yet. It hasn't. I remember last year, or maybe it was the year before last, they played Tennessee. He had a 100-yard game. He had a solid performance. And yeah, that was not last season. That was the year before that. And then you got to where Tony Pollard broke his ankle in the playoff game, and they just rolled with Zeke. They brought Malik Davis in for a play or two, and he had just run the ball for like 110 yards like 2 weeks before that. Just kind of a weird decision. And I'll speaking of that 2 years ago and that Cowboy offense, We'll talk about, when we break down these divisions, we'll definitely get into the Eagles, and we'll talk about how Kellen Moore is now their offensive coordinator. They have Saquon Barkley, and Saquon Barkley won't have to do everything that he did in New York. He has weapons around him that kind of takes that responsibility away from him. But we all know Kellen Moore, as the season progresses, he forgets to run the football. He just does. That's his MO. He did it in LA last year. Austin Eckler just almost became non-existent in that offense, which really kind of pissed me off because he was one of my fantasy running backs. But we'll talk about that whole division and kind of see where if the Cowboys can be the first team to repeat since, I don't know what it is. It's been like since 1998 or something like that. It's been a long time. And try to see what the Cowboys can do. It hadn't been that long. It's probably been like since 2002, 2003. And try to see if the Cowboys can be that team that repeats in this division. Yeah. I'm getting excited. We got about 10 minutes before this preseason game starts. Let's check that out. We'll come on here right after the preseason game. We will break down how the game went. We'll get some stats up and see how the game went and what we can maybe project and see what the Cowboys are going to do with this roster on Wednesday. All right, man. Everybody, you guys have a great one. Y'all make sure y'all check this preseason game out, man. And I'll be back after the game. All right, y'all. Peace.